I'm excited that the Crane Wives are coming through Sioux Falls soon, and we landed this interview. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and your part in the band, and then we'll jump into some questions here.
All right. Hi, I'm Emilee. I am one of the lead singers in the Crane Wives. I also play guitar and I write songs.
Hi, I'm Dan. I play drums and sing a third harmony.
Sweet. So I've actually been listening to you guys kind of all week to prep for this. I like to have a good understanding of like the kind of music I'm going to be interviewing. That changes my questions a lot sometimes too. And I also do research on the band, and I had a great time researching you guys because you guys have some interesting back history on how you formed and everything. So to start with that, so let me make sure I got my research right. So Emilee and Kate, you first met while working together at a Chinese buffet, right?
That's correct.
During the recession?
It was in 2000 and I think it was like in 2012, 2011.
Yeah, that was right when the banks were getting the bailouts and everything.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy time in the world. So
a tough time to be in college debt. Really tough time.
I bet. So my question for you is, what do you remember about meeting her at those days before either of you knew this friendship would become a band?
Oh, that's a good question. It was so long ago. We've been a band for about 16 years now. So this was, it feels like a lifetime ago. But Kate at the time was, when we started the band, she was under 21. And I remember we had worked together at this Chinese buffet. I had known her, through different performing spaces, and we had like an overlapping friend group in college. But it wasn't until we started working together that we really started to spend a lot of time together one-on-one. We had a lot of similar interests and a lot of similar influences musically. And we both hated waitressing. So we asked our boss to let us perform on Friday nights instead of cleaning tables, and they said sure. And it was one of I think the first times that I'd ever had like a job with somebody where we could like commiserate together about wanting to be somewhere else, and we both had like the same vision of what the other thing we wanted to do was, which was play music. So yeah, it was like the first time that the stars had ever really aligned for me in that way. And I love Kate's style of songwriting. And it just really spoke to this part of me that was really trying to get more experience in songwriting and really wanted, to like try to write music with another person. So at that time, I think that my impression of Kate was that she was hungry for the same thing that I was. And we were both in this tough spot where we weren't making a ton of money, but we really had this dream and this thing that was so fun to do. And we would so much rather be doing that than, cleaning up crab legs. So yeah, it was nice to have a common goal for sure.
That's perfect. I love it when an artist can partially answer my next question, because I try to write them a little flow into each other, and
nice.
That's the natural progression it should go. So you already answered kind of how it began. So my next question is those first performances at the restaurant. How were those with the customers eating and coworkers moving around you? What was that like?
Oh, it was a nightmare. Everyone hated it. The customers were not into it. The other employees were really, really not into it. One of my coworkers came up to me, like, I think it was the first evening that we had done music, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, "When you play, it's annoying." And I will never forget that first bad review. But I think what it sold to me was just knowing that, like, oh, that's fine. They don't have to like it. Like realizing that this was for me and for Kate, and not really for the people who came to eat their Chinese food in quiet. So
was there a specific night during those restaurant performances when you realized that this might become something more serious than just a way to avoid waiting tables?
I think night one, honestly. The first time that Kate and I started playing music together, it was like the first time I'd ever really had somebody that I felt comfortable with, you know, sharing that like vulnerable songwriter side with, but also just somebody who was also like using their vulnerability to write music. So our voices melded really well, and I also just felt like our styles complemented each other. So it felt really natural and really easy right away, which was kind of a surprise. And that I think is what like kept the motivation going beyond a lot of the negative reviews at the Chinese restaurant.
So one thing I couldn't find super clear on. So the girls clearly got together first, and then Dan and Ben, and then you guys also had Tom, right?
That's correct.
So how did they enter the picture into the band?
So I grew up with Tom, and then at the time I remember, so this all kind of comes together in a big, it's like a web of life film kind of. Um, I grew up with Tom. Tom and I were in college together. I saw Kate at an open mic on campus, and I remember thinking like, damn, she's good. And then Tom invited me to try to start a different project, and he told me we were going to work with someone called Kate. Walked into the basement to jam with Tom, saw that it was the Kate that I knew from open mic. Come to find out, Kate then tells us that she's been working with Emilee, and that they've been doing this duo thing. They kind of had the band name cooking up, I think, already. And I think the idea there was just to kind of abandon what Tom and Kate and I were trying to do and try to do something new where we bring Emilee in. All the while, I was in a sound design club, like an audio club, and in college with Ben. And I really looked up to Ben in his knowledge of audio. At the time, I was working at a recording studio. I had been an intern, and I had just kind of graduated to being an employee. And then the recording studio had to lay me off because there was no funding for an employee like myself, like a smaller employee. But the amazing guy at the recording studio, his name was Stuart. He said, you know, look, I have to lay you off, but I really like you. Why don't you keep this key? And on Sundays, there's never anything going on in here. So what my thought was like, Ben is such a good dude, and I really looked up to him in terms of audio engineering. And I thought, like, let's bring Ben in as the engineer of this thing. It just so happens that Ben is an incredible bass player as well, and he always jokes that, you know, he used to just kind of look at us with the side eye like, you guys know you need a bass player, right? You know, little did we know he'd eventually become our manager. He runs the whole business. He eventually built a studio that we record a lot of stuff in, like our whole newest record, Beyond Beyond Beyond, was recorded by him. So the early days were like me and him trying to engineer the records and just finding our way through the dark, but kind of trusting each other, and working really collaboratively and actively with everybody, working on these songs that Emilee and Kate had mostly written, and arranging them as a band. And that's how it all started.
So you talked a lot about, you know, you guys mixing the sound and finding the sound. What was those early, how was that early day sound versus the sound you guys have now today? Like,
I like to think that it was a natural evolution from starting out pretty acoustic and folk. West Michigan, if you're not familiar, is a pretty prominent folk music hub.
We were actually just out at Electric Forest. My wife and I covered Electric Forest. We got married there 4 years ago. So we go to Michigan almost every year or two.
Yeah. Sweet. So, you know, like the music scene here is pretty robust, right?
Oh, yeah. They have a great scene. Like,
yeah. It's a great place to raise a band. But at the time when we had just like kind of come into the scene, it was like we were cresting on this wave of like the hey ho folk era of like the Lumineers and Mumford and Sons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, the sound
class. Cover Mumford and Sons soon. So
nice. Oh yeah, they're making a comeback.
Oh yeah, they are.
But like because of I think that influence, we were pretty like comfortable with this idea of being a folk band. We were pretty songwriting heavy, pretty harmony heavy. And then Tom, who was playing for us right at the beginning, he played banjo since Kate and I both play guitar. So he had just kind of picked up a banjo and kind of like freestyled on that in the beginning years. And that kind of like rounded out this very folk, very acoustic sound. But after a few years, Tom left the band, and Kate and I both bought electric guitars. And from that moment forward, I feel like we started on this trajectory to eventually hit like this weird indie rock, like crux.
Well, I can tell you, I've listened from the early days to the newer stuff, and I've liked all of it. Like the progression and evolution has been solid. Now, it helps that I'm very eclectic. I like pretty much everything except like really heavy screamo metal. Like if I can't understand it, what's the point? That's kind of how I feel. But now the name, the Crane Wives, now that connects to a Japanese folktale, right?
That's correct.
Did you guys kind of pull that from your Asian culture from when you were working at the restaurant, or where'd that come from?
Nah, at the time we were really big Decemberists fans. The Decemberists released a record called The Crane Wife. It had a suite of songs, 3 songs, that told the story of this Japanese folktale. And we all kind of felt that it kind of encompassed this sad, like deep feeling.
Oh yeah, because I mean like, the story itself is all about love and sacrifice. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we just felt like it really kind of hit home the feeling that we were trying to evoke in a lot of our music. And when Kate and I had like kind of toyed with this idea before bringing the boys into the band, and so once the boys joined, we had like a conversation, I think, once about maybe changing the name since it is very feminine, but the boys decided that they could be wives. So it worked out.
Way to be progressive.
I agree.
So has the meaning of the name at all changed for you now that you've carried it for 15 years? Especially since, as I've listened to stuff, the themes of the folktale still come through in some of your songs, clearly.
That's an interesting question. I don't think anybody's ever asked us that. And I think for me, it's weird because when you are in a band for so long, the name stops meaning like the folktale to me, and it just starts meaning us. Okay. Like the words are just kind of placeholder for our little group, our crew, for me and our band. And I like to think about our album catalog almost like a canon, like a story of like comic books have canon, movies have canon, and it just feels like an evolving thing. And that's kind of what the Crane Wives is to me now, because I don't often, other than getting asked questions about the band name, I'm always like, I don't really think of it as the legend anymore, which is interesting. But I'm curious to see what you think, Emilee.
I also in my solo project, I really struggled with this idea of like how to approach identity, because I feel like names are really important. And like the Crane Wives obviously has been a part of like who we all have been for the past 16 years. So it's taken on this very complex meaning. But I like the idea of seeing it as like, I don't want to say like a role that I'm playing necessarily, but it's like this job that I've had for a long time. And I think the Crane Wives now feels like it's a job, like we've made it this little business and it supports our lives, and it's kind of like its own machine now. Like we've all put in so much work over the past 16 years. And for a long time, it was just the 4 of us wearing different hats. And, like Ben is underneath the van trying to like jerry rig a piece of mattress spring, like the exhaust system to hold it in place as we drive through Colorado. Like it was a lot of building the machine, for the past 16 years. And now as adults, and now that we've kind of found this broader audience, we've been able to like expand the team a lot. And so now the Crane Wives is more than just the 4 of us. And it's like this crew that we bring with us that makes the whole machine work. And so, yeah, I feel like Crane Wives is the machine. It's everyone who makes the machine work. And it's more than just the 4 of us now. And yeah.
I like that. So your first album was Safe Ship Harbor, right?
Correct.
Now, that came out about a year after you guys got together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, what were you trying to capture on that record? And what do you hear when you revisit that younger record?
It's cute you think we revisit the record. Oh, it's so old.
Yeah. I hear authenticity is the first thing I think of. I hear this like excitement because there was a very, very fun, creative, collaborative energy right away of just like, oh, what about this idea? Oh man, like we could just build, what I heard this urban legend from like a local urban legend, we could turn that into a song. And there
It
was
was
a
like a
lot of
lightning in a bottle era. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
everything was a big idea.
Yeah. And what I feel when we think about the old stuff is like, for example, then flash forward to Beyond, 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 when suddenly we had tons of people that were going to listen to the record right away. It was great to be able to root down into that authenticity from way back when and be like, well, what have we always done? We've always just made stuff that makes us excited and like makes it feel like we're expressing ourselves and what we think the sound should be and what the feelings of the music are. And so when I look back, I hear a lot of authenticity that it was really important to kind of root down in when suddenly it was like, wow, what do we make now that we have an audience,
Well, and I love the evolution you guys took, because those first albums, they're a little softer, folky, but you guys haven't lost your folk. You just kind of kicked the energy up, bringing in the electric instruments, but you still have those great melodies and harmonies worked in there. It still sounds so good. You just kick the energy up, it feels like.
Thank you. Well, we were told by our booking agency that live shows are our superpower, because when we were a young band, like we really cut our teeth on performing, for crowds, breweries, sometimes empty rooms. But I think that so much of that energy comes from just years of performing in these really like loud spaces. We used to, I don't know, like if you were familiar with Grand Rapids in like the early aughts, but we hit right during this brewery boom.
Oh,
yeah. Everybody's making craft
so
beer.
many breweries out there right now.
Exactly.
And every time we travel out there, like there's like new signs for new breweries, and every time
even now,
and even
it's
when we go to a
crazy.
festival, like there's always a brewery that is one of the sponsors of the festivals or one of the shows. Like they're in everything out there.
And that's how like we cut our teeth, I think, as young musicians trying to figure out where we fit. We performed at a lot of these really loud bars that weren't used to having, acoustic music. And in that way, we were forced to kind of meet the energy of a crowd that's like been drinking beer since 6 p.m. And, now it's midnight. And so like you kind of have to bring the energy up to meet them where they're at. And so we had a lot of practice doing that. And now I feel like it's just kind of second nature for us to be kind of kicked up a notch.
Yeah, no, I agree. And with that the younger stuff, you had a lot of bright harmonies and lively folk arrangements, but your lyrics, I mean, you had stuff about economic anxiety, religious pressure, and anger. Was that contrast intentional from the beginning, or did you only recognize it as the songs started accumulating?
I think for me, there was definitely some intention. I grew up listening to ska music, which is like the happiest music with the darkest lyrics possible. And that was always like I love that juxtaposition. That is.
I agree. Like,
so
I love Streetlight Manifesto. And
yes,
yes. A lot of people, like, I'll mention them and they're like, who are you talking about? So I'm so glad that you knew exactly what I was talking about.
Our bass player, Zito, he's a huge fan. And he went to see their CD release in New Jersey in 2009, 2008, I think.
I'm always sad because they seem to do like one show a year still, but it's never near me, and it's too far to travel.
And they keep over promising, like, we're coming back, we're gonna make an album, we're gonna tour. And just kidding, we're not doing any of that.
So you guys kind of came of age professionally in that rough time, the recession, all that stuff was going on. You were working low-paying jobs while trying to build this creative life. how did that period shape the way you viewed success, labor, and the possibility of making music sustainable?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it humbled us in a really important way, because I think if we were 22 and we experienced the rapid growth and wild expansion of our fan base back when we were 22, if we had experienced that, I just think we wouldn't have had as strong of legs underneath us, you know? And it just really, like, I feel very grounded these days when we look out at these. I mean, we get to play to the absolute dream audiences. Our fans are the best in the world. Like, I mean, that sounds like hyperbole, but it's just like they're really incredible people, and they show up for us everywhere we go. It's like this perfect, the dream crowd just kind of manifests itself in every city that you go to. So when I'm up there, it just feels like, wow, yeah, we all know kind of who we are, what we've been through. We used to play to, everything from, like Emilee saying, like a loud brewery full of 50 people who aren't watching you. Go from that to, like, I mean, we've literally played in like pizza shops and outdoors at events where no one's listening, and indoors at events where no one's listening. And just on and on. And I think that it's wonderful, because we have the humility to just be like, this is a miracle what we're experiencing right now. We know how much of a miracle it is, and we're not, like, entitled to it, so we don't take it for granted, and we really give it our all when we're up there on the stage, because we're lucky to be there.
But it's also like, it was good to teach us what longevity could look like, like, because not every
Yeah.
band is going to have like the longevity of like top of your career, Billboard top 50, like for your whole career. That's just not realistic. But what does feel realistic is like playing enough shows to be comfortable, to like expand your audience without necessarily burning yourself out, to be able to write songs, like all of these things being able to be a part of your life long term. Like, because I know that all of us had different jobs at different points of the Crane Wives. Like, this has been everyone's sole source of income at some point, but at different times people have had, side jobs and side hustles. And I think the thing that we keep coming back to is we just want to make this Crane Wives machine work as efficiently for as long as possible. And that doesn't necessarily always mean playing gigantic rooms or, to huge crowds. Sometimes that can mean saying no to gigs that don't make sense or would create an opportunity for burnout to kind of take hold. So it's been, I think, like Dan said, it's important that this happened after we've had a lot of experience in figuring out what our boundaries are and what feels good to us and what doesn't. Because now we can kind of protect the things that are important and, kind of experiment with other parts of being a band.
Well, part of your evolution I really liked was it around 2015 Tom left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys lost that banjo. And something I really liked, though, after Tom left, is it didn't seem like you guys were trying to fill that hole or like do the same stuff. You guys evolved. You found a way to move forward, completely losing that sound, but still sound like the Crane Wives, how difficult was it to let the music change instead of trying to recreate what had already worked?
Oh, I wouldn't call it difficult, actually. It just felt natural, felt like we got to do what is in our hearts right now and what we're trying to do right now. And I think what's neat is that when you listen to Coyote Stories and Fox Lore, there's a ton of layers and a ton of kind of characteristic sounds. And there are some really sick lead guitar parts from Emilee and Kate. And we brought in a bunch of guests. Like, we had a string section. We had, on one, we had a clarinetist. We had two of our friends who are also electric guitar players fill out stuff in the sound. So we had a lot of fun expanding. And it's really cool because, to me, Fox Lore and Coyote Stories are this period of like sonic expansion. Oh, yeah. And then when we get to Beyond, 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 then we're really letting just the four of us, other than the strings. We had a wonderful string section of Jordan Hamilton and Samantha Cooper on Beyond, Beyond, Beyond. But one of my favorite parts of Beyond, Beyond, Beyond is the interplay between Kate and Emilee's lead guitar playing. They're the only guitar players on Beyond, 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 and it just gives them it gives the audience a chance to see just what Emilee and Kate are capable of on electric guitar. So that sense of like things expanded and then they like contracted a little bit, but it's still like kind of our most sonically big record. But it's been fun.
Well, it was like I think like the Coyote Stories and Foxler. So we recorded both of those records at the same time, and just kind of like split up the songs by vibe. I think it was.
Yeah,
I could feel that when you listen to them.
But that was like at a time where we were kind of experimenting with making a record that didn't sound like something that we could instantly reproduce on a stage. Because at that time we had been playing so many live shows and we had built such a following around this live sound, that we were ready to start, trying to build something that's a little bit different. I think we were, especially after Tom left, we didn't want to just replace the banjo. There were a couple of tours in which I played a little bit of banjo, like for certain songs, but it just wasn't, like you're trying to recreate something that somebody else did, and it just didn't hit the same. So it was easier to just write a new part. And so now we have a lot of songs actually that we do perform from, like The Fool in Her Wedding Gown and Safe Ship, where like Kate has taken over with like a rip and lead part instead of having that like very repetitive banjo part. And it just makes the song just feel completely different. And it's really exciting to get to like go back and kind of give a different gloss over some of these older songs that, have lived in this one way for so long.
I love that you guys brought up Coyote Stories and Fox Lore, because my next question is those albums became defining records for many listeners, but they were also made during a period when you guys were quitting your day jobs, you were touring more heavily and treating the band as your actual profession at this point. What did that leap cost you and what did it make possible?
wow, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, we all did a bunch of different stuff. I was working construction right before we recorded those. I think what did it? Well, it allowed us. I don't know. There's a little bit of blind confidence you have to have, just kind of like a little bit of almost like magical thinking to be a dreamer enough to be like, this is gonna work for us. We're just gonna keep doing it, because there were many years where we were all dirt poor. And so I think it was great because we believed really hard in those records. We worked so hard on those two albums, and we had a couple moments during that whole process where someone would kind of go, this song needs more than we're giving it, and we need to keep digging in and adding more layers and seeing what this song really can be on a record. And so I think that like it's crazy because we put so much work into them with no promise of that work like paying back in a legit equation, and now looking back, here we are a decade later, and we're able to have this incredible fan base, and be sustainable, like Emilee said, and like actually be sustaining ourselves. And a lot of it, I think, is because of how hard we worked on those records. So it's interesting.
Definitely. I think that it cost us a sense of stability at the time, like we were investing a lot, and we didn't really want to crowdsource both albums completely. We wanted to do it, to make it real and make it good, but not to necessarily be beholden to a ton of people. And we ended up making something that we all really liked, and we had that was enough to keep the dream alive, I think. And at the time, I had I had an office job at the time, and it was really scary to lose the stability and the security. But I think just taking the risk on those records, even if there wasn't any immediate payoff, they belatedly have facilitated our dreams completely coming true. So yeah.
Something I love about your guys' writing in your songs is it sticks true to kind of that folktale storyline where they use a lot of analogies, and you guys frequently use animals, gardens, moons, monsters, houses, and other pieces of folklore to approach experiences that might be painful to kind of name directly instead of just using the analogy. When writing, do those images arrive before you understand what a song is about, or are they tools you choose to create the distance from the subject?
These questions are beautiful, by the way. I feel like I need to tell you that. Yeah, it's a tough question. I feel like when I write lyrics, I'm trying to evoke like a vibe, and it's hard to put into words. So I think that when the lyrics come out, they usually come out in the form of imagery that speaks to me. And I am a big fan of like bones and the woods, and I am also a visual artist, and I love to paint like burning houses and animals especially. I feel like it helps me put into words a feeling that doesn't really have a name, and I feel like these are the tools that I have because it's what I'm most familiar with. Especially like growing up in Michigan, being surrounded by nature, having a lot of folk music influence, in my life from a young age. Those are just like the images and the imagery and the symbolism that like really hits home for me. So that's the stuff that I use.
I will say, like in like a lot of these songs, a vast majority of them started with either Emilee or Kate, just kind of like alone in their bedroom, and then they write the song, write the chords, lyrics, melodies, and then they bring it to the band, and we flesh it out and arrange it. And we each write our own harmonies. Ben writes the bass lines. Whoever's not playing rhythm writes a lead part, and I write my drum parts. And I just wanted to say, like, the imagery in the lyrics always really directs what I'm trying to do, like texturally on the drums, and how I can get like, so exactly, like if there's those, you mentioned all like moons and monsters, then there's so much vibe in there, and that definitely directs like, oh, okay, I'm imagining this kind of like scene that's been painted by the imagery and the lyrics, and I want to create a texture on the drums that fits the vibe and adds more color and adds more depth. So it definitely plays into the whole process.
Yeah, I remember when Steve was laying down a guitar part in The Moon Will Sing, there's like a very ambient guitar part. Our friend Steve Leaf, who is also our tour manager, he played that part. And I remember Kate telling Steve, I want it to sound like the moon reflecting on a lake. And he did it.
I like that. I also love your answer, Dan, because like rhythm and drums like control so much of a band's sound sometimes. It's always that, that pulse in the background no matter what. So your answer was perfect for that. Now, right. Never Love an Anchor has taken on deeply personal meaning in relation to adoption, while newer work such as Scars approaches that trauma more directly. So what allowed you to move from writing through protective metaphor towards naming the wound more openly? Because those songs contrast, where one's a little more back and one's more direct.
Beautiful analysis. Beautiful. And the answer is therapy. Lots and lots of adoption-informed therapy. I think that, like, I really had a lot of distance between me and even the concept of being adopted, because I had kind of like a rough relationship with my parents for a long time, my adoptive parents for a long time. I always really struggled with my relationships with my family. And it took me a really long time to figure out how to address that. I don't think that a lot of kids are given, the right language or tools to deal with complex feelings, let alone, like adopted kids. No one told my parents that I would need therapy, right? They just kind of figured if they loved me enough that, that would be enough to protect me from what is like scientifically like trauma. There's like a lot of research now that talks a lot about how like adult adoptees experience a lot of trauma through the adoption familial separation process that often doesn't get processed healthily, which is why adoptees are actually like 1 in 4 more likely to attempt self-harm. So it's a complex issue for sure. And it took me a really long time and a lot of therapy with people who were specifically trained in tackling complex family dynamics, particularly with like transracial adoptees. It was just a lot of digging and a lot of labor to feel safe enough to have that conversation. And in that process, I went back to Korea for the first time since I was adopted. I got to walk, you know, in the city where I was born, where I think my mom lived. Like, there's just a lot of cool stuff that you know, that comes up as you do this digging process. And I feel very grateful that I've been able to like go back to Korea and like try to reconnect as much as possible. But it's definitely reflected in the songwriting, the journey for sure.
Yeah, you can definitely feel that in some of them for sure. So I just want to first say I'm just proud that you did the work, because I know a lot of people who like they just get into this bitter, angry like phase, and then they never get out of it. They just like learn to stay there. So like the fact that you
there.
Yeah, the fact that you did the work to like progress yourself through it is amazing.
Thank you. It's still a work in progress. There's no like end destination, but I feel more comfortable talking about it. I'm excited to talk more about it, just because I do think that it's, you know, like the Korean diaspora is such a small part of the entire adoption narrative, but it was like 250,000 babies since the 50s. That's like that's the population of Grand Rapids. So
that's the population of Sioux Falls pretty much too. So
right, it's not like an isolated experience. And it's really exciting to be able to connect with other adoptees through the music specifically. We travel to places that feel a lot more diverse than West Michigan does. Growing up, I grew up like outside of Pontiac, in a very homogenous area. And it's just been like such a gift to be able to go out and look into an audience and see, you know, people who are from different walks of life, who seem to like understand the core tenets of the music. It feels very healing and unifying.
So before COVID, you guys had already spent nearly a decade building your regional following. Then fan animations began prominently, with curses and expanding through songs such as The Moon Will Sing. Introduced the band to an enormous online audience. When did you first realize something unusual was happening with those?
There wasn't one video that kind of started all of this, and it was a South Park fan animation by a user on YouTube named Extra Balls with a Z. And that video used the song Curses. It like racked up 1 million views, and because of that, the YouTube algorithm just kept suggesting our music to more people who are in different fandoms and people who make animations. And watching the listen count on Curses start, you know, like line go up, but we couldn't figure out why for the longest time until we found this video. I think this is why, but I don't understand any of the things that are happening in this video. So like we're very, you know, like separate from the fandoms, but we do deeply appreciate the creativity and, you know, like the dedication to the lore. Like we're just, I support it. I don't necessarily get it, but I definitely support it.
That's perfect. That actually leans right into my next one. So how did it feel to watch listeners place your songs inside these fantasy stories, queer narratives, role-playing campaigns, and animated worlds that had nothing to do with your original circumstances in which you wrote the songs?
It was my dream, dude. I was a kid making like playlists for my D&D characters, you know, like that was me, that I was doing that. And it's just amazing that like those people, that community found us. And it's wonderful. We love helping to inspire other people. I think it's such an honor to be used as like the background music for your D&D campaign. So into that.
Did seeing all those interpretations change your relationship with any of your older songs, particularly songs you may have believed had already lived out their natural lifespan?
I don't know if any of them super changed. I think that one of my favorite parts about music is that when it is drenched in metaphor, as you pointed out, ours is before, um, that it does mean a little bit of a different thing to each individual listener. Like there's one song that we have from the very early days called The Crooked the Cradle. And we have heard people discuss it being about an oil spill. Somebody discussed it being about Harry Potter. And like, people, so people, and neither of those are the correct, like what it was written about, or maybe I'm getting that mixed up. But
Yeah, was somebody thought it was about abortion.
oh yeah, that's
It's
right.
not.
Yeah, I flipped that. Yeah, but that's what's so cool is seeing what they believe it's about, and hearing about it is just so magical because it's like, yeah, it's yours now. If that's what it is to you, that's what it is to you. And we can tell you where it came from for us, but that can just exist alongside, what world it kind of creates in your mind to be listening to the song, which is just awesome.
I do always feel a little surprised at like the songs that they've latched onto. Like Curses was kind of a B-side from, in my opinion. In my like it like wasn't my favorite on Foxlore, and we had been performing it, for almost a decade by the point like the kids found it. So seeing them create new art from it, it kind of reignited this interest that I feel like I had lost after years of, performing the song to breweries and people who just didn't care as much.
So speaking of the breweries, so you guys started out at a lot of the breweries. So obviously you didn't have a ton of young kids at those shows. One thing I've noticed though now is that looking through some of your concert shots and just fan pages and stuff, posts online, you guys have accumulated a very young audience following now as well. Has that responsibility changed the way you think about the environment you create at the shows and the boundaries you set around the community?
100%. Absolutely. We are very aware that for a lot of people who come to our shows, it's their first concert ever. And like that is something that you're going to remember forever, good or bad. So we want to make sure that it's a good and safe experience above everything else. There's, like we're pretty limited in what we can control at, a venue when we're on tour, but we try our best to make sure places feel safe and accessible, that there's safety plans, and that what we're trying to curate a very friendly and safe crowd. So far it's been okay.
I feel like Dan's been waiting for this question because he's mentioned Beyond Even Beyond a few times. So Beyond sounds like a band refusing to retreat into the folk sound that first made people comfortable with you. After an 8-year gap between studio albums, what conversations did you have about who the Crane Wives had become and what you were unwilling to repeat from the old days?
Ooh, again, good questions. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was I touched on it a little bit earlier. I remember specifically a conversation that was kind of like all of us just opening up the can of worms together of like, what does this mean now that they've found all of our old stuff? They absolutely devoured all 4 albums of the catalog. And I remember the conversation of us just really grounding down in this idea of we do what we always have done in terms of the spirit of the thing and the goal of the thing and the raw emotion of the songs, and just trusting ourselves and trusting what we like and what we think is dope. And so in a sense it was like staying true to what we've always done as artists, which meant specifically not staying the same sonically, if that makes sense. It's like we got to do what excites us, and you're always trying to make a record that you love, right? First, like if you love it, then you're going to be satisfied and you're going to be proud of it. And chances are, if you love it so much, someone else is going to love it. And I've always found that to be such a better, more like aligned way to create rather than being like, what do we think that they'll like? Let's try to make that. That's going to be
I was actually going to
flimsy.
say that's something I like about you guys is like you can tell that you made the music for you guys, and over time the following came, but you guys never like steered away from making music for yourselves. You didn't like try to make these hits for the audience. You could tell that you guys were just invested in your story.
I mean, back in the day, there was like right when we first started, we tried doing like songs by commission, you know, like somebody with money wants to pay you to write a song, I can write a song. But it turns out that that's not as, there's no return on that, you know, like it doesn't feel like you've made anything that you can really be proud of, and it doesn't feel completely yours. And I think we just kind of learned from that experience, those very few and very uncomfortable experiences right away, that like, this isn't for us. Like what sparks joy is not the guaranteed success. It's the process of making, it's the building the thing. Honestly, the promotion of an album, once the album is done, it's all downhill from there. Like then it's just hard work and interviews,
tour, push.
But like making it, that's just play. And so like I think that we wanted to live in that world where we get to play and it's not work when we're making the song, because every other part is kind of work.
All right, last big question. So you have described the newer music as carrying a form of radical hope, not passive optimism, but the belief that change is possible when people act. After surviving the lean years, the lineup changes, the long drives, and unexpected internet rebirth, what does hope look like for the Crane Wives now?
Wow, you want to start with that one?
I think for me, it looks like radical hope for the Crane Wives looks like inspiring a generation of younger musicians and creatives to make their own shit. I know that these kids are going to make such cool stuff. They've been making fan art and coming in costumes that they hand sew, and you know they're passionate about justice and they're passionate about making the world better, and there's just something that's like super inspiring in that way. And so I want to give them the fuel that they need to keep on doing that, whatever we have to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll add. I would say hope to me feels like growth, not in like the sense of more playing to more people, or more of sustainability in that realm. But I'm talking about like personal inner growth and artistic growth, because that's what to me Beyond felt like, was like there's such a tension and release on the album of like internal conflict and then like taking a leap. And what I love about the way we assembled the record is that at the end, the last song is kind of this invitation to essentially say to the listener, like, you can be brave and you can kind of like take a leap. And we don't in the song say like, and they all lived happily ever after, we just kind of leave it on this cliffhanger of like, whatever you're moving through, no matter how hard it is, you can try to be courageous and try to grow and try to work on yourself and try to work on, artistically, it just really feels like, continuing to grow in this way where we're never just kind of sitting back and going like, oh, we're good, but trying to push ourselves and hopefully then be an example for those fans that we are lucky enough to inspire and be a part of their lives. Hopefully we can be an example for them of like, growth and how you keep evolving. And because like you said, you described our whole journey of like, there's been a ton of change, a ton of, unexpected change and a ton of change. And I think that change is just a natural flow of being alive. And so meeting that change with courage is like what I hope we can continue to do, if that makes sense.
It does. And I'd say you guys actually went one above that, because not only did you deal with, the uncertainty, the whatever came your way that caused changes, but you guys have also searched out that personal growth, and you've made meaningful, purposeful growth changes as well. And I think that's even more impressive.
Well,
Thank you.
shucks. We'll keep trying.
So I'm out of questions, but I just want to give this last little part. Is there anything you guys would like to say to your fans, or any upcoming projects that maybe you want to just mention a little bit that might be in the works?
Well, Dan just released a record.
Oh, oh sure. Yeah. It's a very bountiful, abundant time for Crane Wives fans, because currently Emilee is in the rollout for her new solo record under the name Lee Emmy. I'll let you talk about that. But over the previous year, I got to work on a record of my own. It's called Ache in the Blooming. People can find it under my name, Dan Rickabus. And I got to collaborate with some dear friends and make something that the pieces of which I had been holding on to for a long time. And it was really fun then to get in the studio live with some collaborators and make this record. It came out at the end of May, beginning of June. And there's still some stuff moving with that project if you want to check it out, because I had to assemble a really big band to perform the record in early June. And we captured some live videos of what that band sounded like. So it was kind of a two-part phase. Like, you can listen to the record and hear a smaller team making a really colorful, expansive collaboration with the songs and the pieces of stuff that I was working on. And then there's kind of this second wave of what happened when we got, it's a 7-piece band that I arranged only for 2 shows. So we knew we had to capture it as well. So that's been really exciting to have stuff. It's kind of like a part of it feels like a conversation with a past version of myself and my present self, because some of the ideas are really old and some of them are incredibly new and fresh. So anyway, that record meant a lot to me to make, and it's out everywhere now for people to listen to. There's vinyl coming and live stuff coming, and it's just really fun to have those other collaborations. And you come back to the Crane Wives, with all of this newness and all of this like blank slate feeling of like, wow, I just expressed all this other stuff, all these other ideas, and now I'm kind of like, it's like fertile ground now there's a blank soil to plant all sorts of Crane Wives seeds in and see what comes out of that. And anyway, that was a long-winded version of the response, but Emilee's also releasing a solo record right now.
Yeah, I'm releasing under the name Lee Emee, which is just a take on my Korean name, and it's coming out in October. So got a couple of singles one's coming out at the end of August, and one's going to be out, I think, October 2nd. So yeah, a lot of work, a lot of filming in the downtime between tours. But really excited for that record. Ben Zito, the bass player of Crane Wives, manager extraordinaire, he produced this record as well. So it's got like a lot of elements that I feel like are, core tenets of the Crane Wives, while also entering this new space that has been really fun to play in.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for taking the time to meet with me, especially ahead of the show while you're busy with all the tour stuff. Really appreciate it. We're looking forward to getting this out and hoping to generate a little buzz for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. You have a great one, and I'll see you soon.